My name is PJ Angelini, and I'm Public Affairs Officer for Clatsop County. And I'm sitting here with
Jane Donnelly. My husband and I moved here in 2005 in February. 25 years of my working career were down in Florida. And the second my husband could retire, we left Florida and ended up on the Pacific coast, which is where we wanted to be. And it was one of those magical springs when it was warm enough that we had every door and window open for the rest of that year while we were stripping wallpaper and painting the house and getting things fixed up the way we wanted it to. Having grown up in Portland, I kept on telling my husband, okay, we can't be down in a gully. We need to have some sort of a view because it gets really dark during the winter. And now he understands because we had visited a lot over the years. And every time we'd show up, we'd have beautiful sunny days. What are you talking about? It rains. Oh, it rains. It rains, honey. Don't you worry about that.
So you were here in 2007 for the storm, right?
Oh, yes. The storm started December the 5th of 2007. We had spent 25 years in Florida. We'd seen a lot of hurricanes. We'd dodged a lot of hurricanes. And then we came here and we got a hurricane. So it was the worst storm I'd ever been through. And I'd also been through the Columbus Day storm in Portland as a child. It was scary. I've never seen the river look like that. We laid in bed that night and listened to our roof disappear. It was a very interesting experience.
When you say you don't ever remember seeing the river like that, what was it looking like?
Well, during the day, it was because the winds were so sustained for so long, the river turned an interesting light emerald green in color, and you could see the water vapor come off the river and just kind of dissipate into the air. And just watching what was happening in the neighborhood over those 3 days before everything calmed back down. The river was pretty spectacular and it was empty. There was no one out there. And you don't see that unless the mouth of the river and the bar is pretty extraordinary. They kick everybody out of the river.
So you mentioned things happening over 3 days. So talk to me more about that.
Well, the reason that the storm was so bad is that it didn't just come and pass. In Florida, you could watch a storm come through. You'd see the leading edge of it. It'd come through and it'd be gone within 45 minutes. But this storm came in and it just sat there for almost 3 days. And that's why there was so much devastation, because it just kept on working everything, every house, every building, every tree. And finally, things just gave up and flew away. And they flew away for good because we couldn't find a lot of stuff. We were very lucky. It took a lot of the shingles off the roof. But, people lost their whole roofs, not only the shingles, but the whole roofing materials, and their ceilings just disappeared. So much more like a tornado picking things up and tossing things around than a windstorm, you would think. But I believe they were saying that the wind speeds hit 140 miles an hour. And that's fast. That's a lot of wind for a long period of time.
So that wind was sustained over days?
Days, yeah.
What does 140 mile an hour wind sound like? And what does it look like if you're looking at the trees?
Well, you can see your windows bend. And we all think of glass as being fairly rigid, but when you can see a pane of glass suck in and suck out, it's kind of a terrifying experience. And then you start thinking, maybe I should have put some plywood over that window. And I think we were warned that the storm was coming, But I don't think any of us thought it would last so long or be so strong. And, just watching trees. We only have one tree, an apple tree on our property, but I have friends who have had very large evergreen trees either on their property or adjacent. And they said that the sounds were just terrifying because you just hear the tree snap like a twig. And then you'd hear things coming down and you never knew what it was going to land on.
And so then you were without power?
Mm-hmm. For an extended period of time. I remember thinking it was almost 2 weeks. I believe it was only 8 days, but no one could get in and no one could get out. And there was no power. And at least in our house, we were basically all electric. So we had no hot water, no heat, couldn't cook. And luckily we're big campers. So we had all of our camping equipment. So we basically camped for a week and a half, which was fine because we just took food out of the freezer. We had plenty of food. Our neighbors had a big freezer and they had been given a gift of steaks for a month. So we ate very well. We ate a lot more beef than we've ever eaten at one time.
How did the neighbors or how did the community come together?
That, I think, was what impressed us the most. KMUN was still on the air, and the newspaper, I believe by the second day, had gotten out a mimeographed sheet letting everybody know what was going on. So it was the Daily A in an 8x10. And that showed up and everybody thought that was pretty funny. But people were sharing food. I guess what we saw more than anything else was the community pulling together, people sharing, businesses, restaurants that were going to lose all their food in their freezers were cooking food on their gas stoves and giving it away. A little coffee shop down here, they use propane, and they were giving coffees away, which was a real blessing that first morning that we got out on the road. We didn't see anybody giving anyone a hassle. We heard stories of people fighting over the last loaf of bread. We never saw any of that. We saw people being generous and kind and helpful to everyone. It was pretty amazing.
You said that there was no way in and no way out.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
30 was closed. Lots of debris, lots of trees, lots of landslides. 26 was closed. So no one could get out to help. And people kept on saying, well, why didn't you call someone? Well, cell phones, the cell towers were all down. So you couldn't call out. We actually, after the fact, bought an old-fashioned plug-in telephone that would plug into a wall jack. Because for some reason, those worked even sooner than your cell phones worked. So after that, we went out and went antiquing and found an old-fashioned rotary telephone, and it worked very well. But, you just couldn't communicate with the outside world.
What did that feel like?
I guess we had a lot of anxiety. You're worried about your roof. You're worried about water intrusion and all that. The folks down at City Lumber were wonderful, helping people get what they needed. We tarped our own roof. A neighbor came down and got us a safety apparatus so that we could tie off to our chimney and wouldn't fall off our roof, because there are parts of our roof that are 3 stories tall. I haven't been on the roof since that time. But we put down our first tarps, and then it was probably 3 or 4 weeks before we got a contractor who could do our roof, which did not happen until March of the following year. They were so backed up, but they came in, they put professional tarps down and got everything under control so that we could breathe a little easier. The radio station put out some calls for people to come and help people clean things up or try to get something under control. We did that a couple times, and that was really nice. You just have a lot of energy, you feel like you need to be doing something. And if you can't get up there and roof your own house, someone needs help that you can help with, you've got that energy to go and do, because it gets pretty boring sitting at home with no electricity.
So Jane, since that storm, how have you prepared for anything else like it?
We'd make sure we had plenty of propane. We now have kerosene lights for most of the rooms. The stove is now gas, so we can cook. We're pretty well prepared to batten down. But I don't know if in our house or in our situation we'd leave town, but we'd probably think about it.
Thank you very much, Jane. That's
You're
wonderful.
welcome.